So a couple of my quick takes from the Falcons Rams game. First of all, the Falcons did a great job. Offense was clicking. I think Matt Ryan was just playing really well and accurate and being cautious with the football. Running game was solid. Julio Jones is Julio Jones. And that defense did a great job. Now that I got that out of the way, Jared Goff is who we thought he was. He's just not a franchise quarterback. I think for being drafted so high, he's going to prove to be a bust for a first-round quarterback. He's just a solid quarterback, and he does things at about a middling level. And I think he'll prove that he's just a middling quarterback. Like, he's nothing special. And Matt Ryan's a much better quarterback than him right now. And that's why they won the game. If the Rams quarterback play was better, I think they definitely would have won this game. And Sammy Watkins, again, is proving why Buffalo got rid of him. He's not a number one receiver. He's a pretty good receiver, but he's definitely not number one, and somebody that I don't think they're going to pay or should pay that number one receiver money. If they can retain him at a good price, he's definitely worth keeping. But I think injuries just slowed him down, and he didn't have his best game, and the Rams really needed to play this game. And so back to a first things first with Chris Carter and Nick Wright.
Ryan threw for 218 yards and found Julio Jones for an 8-yard touchdown to seal the deal in the fourth quarter. Julio finished with 9 catches for 94 yards. This spoiled a decent playoff debut for Jared Goff. He threw for 259 yards, a touchdown, had no picks on the day. Here is Matt Ryan and Sean McVay after the game.
We're not here just to get here. We want to make noise while we're here. And so, this is what it's all about. It's about giving yourself the opportunity, this time of the year to compete and play in games like this and to win games like this.
I don't think this game was too big for our players. We're a young football team. We didn't make enough plays tonight to be able to get it done, but I don't think that means that it was too big for our guys. I do think that they'll look at it and say, how can we learn from the things that occurred in this game if we're fortunate enough to even be in this position again?
Still excited at his post-game press conferences. Win or lose, season's over. He's still excited. So we talked about this high, potent Rams offense, that there's nothing that could derail them. They were running the ball. They were throwing the ball. Like, they were just on fire. What happened to them yesterday?
Anytime you're an offensive-dominated team and you get into a tournament, this is not basketball where you're playing a series, 2 out of 3. So a lot of times the best team is not going to win. It's who can play the best football. Now, the Rams, I can guarantee you today that they are a lot more conscious as far as the pressure and some of the things that happen in a playoff game that are different than the regular season. Now, they can stay there with their same lie and be like, you know something? Inexperience doesn't play a part. But you know who always says that? It's not the team with experience. Right. It's always the team with inexperience. Oh, it doesn't matter. I talked to you about that. Yeah, inexperience, it don't matter till you do a TV show and you've been doing radio. It does matter. Repetitions do matter. How you play the playoff game is different. Now, Todd Gurley only getting 14 carries, that's one of the reasons why they are packed up and playing golf today. Another reason is...
Before you move on, I just want to tell the audience, it wasn't 14 carries like Alvin Kamara only had 10 because it was unproductive.
Right.
14 carries for 101 yards, over 7 yards per carry, so they were productive carries. Go ahead, CC.
And their inability to score touchdowns in the red zone, not be able to punch it in. I think they were 1 for 4 in red zone trips. That right there, when you are a young football team, it's going to hurt you. Now, I'm not going to say they played the game where the lights and everything were too big for them, but they didn't play like they did during the regular season. Their defense, I know we talked about Aaron Donald, they need to play the run. I mean, I try to tell you, those sack-happy teams, they rush the passer on every single play. In Atlanta, we've been chastising them all year. Steve Sarkisian, he went back to the Coliseum where he was the head coach, and he dialed up a game plan that was very, very productive. We're going to run the ball. We're going to get Julio Jones involved, and Matty Ice played to the level of which we had expected. This was a good football game for the Atlanta Falcons.
All right, you mentioned it, but I just want to reiterate. The lack of touches for Todd Gurley was a tough one to swallow if you're a Rams fan, because this was a close game at halftime. It's not like they were getting blown out. It was 13-10 at halftime. Just for some context, The Falcons running backs, who I think everyone feels like played pretty well, 32 carries for 106 yards. Todd Gurley.
Over 7 yards a carry.
No, there's Falcons running backs, 32 for 106.
Right, yes.
And then Gurley, 14 for 101. So 18 fewer carries, almost the same rushing yards. I'm going to point out something. Now I'm going to kind of sway into CeCe's lane. Sometimes when I do this, he starts to smile because I'm totally missing it, but I'm going to take the risk. The Rams have been doing something very interesting all year, which is with their young quarterback and their young coach. He has been talking to Jared Goff until the final cutoff moment. They talked about it on the broadcast. They cut off the mics at 15 seconds. So they let the defense line with whatever personnel's out there. Then he sends in the call, having looked at the defense. What it looked to me like the Falcons were doing was adjusting at the end, was making more late snap adjustments, and Goff, who had the security of Sean McVay, who's a brilliant mind, all year helping him. All of a sudden, he was there by himself.
And it's also one of the reasons why the college players fail in the NFL. In college, they hold up a sheet of paper to tell the guys after they see the defense.
Right.
Now, in defenses in college, they don't have the wherewithal to make the kind of adjustments that NFL teams do, so they could line up in an actual 34 front. And as the play clock begins to get down, because the coach can talk, whoever that is, the coordinator or the head coach, can talk to the quarterback until 15 seconds. After that, the quarterback's on his own. That's why Tom Brady, Drew Brees, Aaron Rodgers, these guys are lethal in those last 15 seconds. They caught on to Goff. So the defense, Dan Quinn, a little birdie told them, hey, man, the coach is talking to him in 15 seconds. Let's line up in one thing and then switch. And that's what you're able to see when they have 16 games of the season to go over, and there's a lot more intel, all right, going around the league. You know who Dan Quinn probably called? Pete Carroll.
The guy he was the defensive coordinator for. They
his
played him
mentor.
Twice.
And he probably led him on to the fact that this is what they're doing, switch defenses at the end, and it paid big dividends for the Falcons.
And for Goff, it was his worst game.
Great get, too, Nick. You finding that.
Thank you. It was the worst game in 2 months. I mean, Goff wasn't terrible, but it was the worst game he's played in a couple months. It was the highest scoring offense in the league, averaging 30 points a game. They scored 13 points in the whole game. What was disappointing to Jenna was, yeah, they did look inexperienced. And Farrell Cooper, the punt returner, had a tough game.
Yes.
And things went against him early. I mean, that was 13-10 at halftime. And then in the second half, the Falcons get the kickoff. They have an extended drive, but they only get a field goal. You've played poorly. You're down 16-10, getting the ball back in the second half, and they couldn't get it going.
The problem is the things that the Rams were so good at during the season, special teams that we talked about, they had some issues with. That offense, we never talked about that much, the Falcons defense. We kept talking about how this Falcons offense was going to generate and get going and moving. Meanwhile, that defense really held them down, and their special teams ended up really hurting them in the end.
I mean, if you said again, Matt Ryan's going to throw for 220, and the Falcons are going to rush for 120, you'd probably say, okay. Like, at the very least, it's going to be a very close game. Like, the Rams are going to be right there, and they just couldn't get their offense going.
Atlanta dominated time of possession. Yeah. Now, if you look at any of the NFL games, I'll get dusty. Maybe we'll do it later on. If you 15 minutes on the plus side in time of possession, 37 minutes to 22, there's a good chance, unless you turn the ball over in those 30, unless you do a Peterman and throw 5 picks or something, like, you are going to win that football game. Great game plan by Atlanta. They held down the Rams offense by what? By staying on the field, by grinding it out, and that is one of the attacks when you have an explosive offense like the Rams have.
All right, we're going to take a break. Coming up, the New England Patriots are denying any rift, shockingly, between Bob Kraft, Tom Brady, and Bill Belichick. We'll break that down next on First Things